All right, whatever you say, Doc.
Yes, so we are going to officially start our session, which is actually today. As we know, this is actually 2 meetings in 1 session, because as with the presence of Professor Abu Tahun in our last meeting, I announced we are going actually to have the last session of the APEC and TUMS online endodontic journal club in the next session. So today is the penultimate session. So the last session will be the 22nd of APEC TUMS online endodontic journal club. And after that, we are running and we are keep going on the same rail, but with different programs, with a different moderation and different way of organization. Therefore, today we have actually the kickoff meeting as well, which is about the case presentation conference. And so we are going to have 45 minutes of our journal club and also 45 minutes of the CPC program. So fortunately, we have Professor Jeong with us as well. Hello, Professor Jeong, we can hear you now. Can you please test your microphone?
Hi. Hi, nice to meet you. This is Dr. Jeong.
Thank you very much indeed for joining to our program. So you are the author of our today article that we choose to discuss about it. And Professor Fatima Betul from Turkey, she's going actually to talk about it today. So the way of this program is we start talking a little more about the article, and then all the audience, they have this opportunity to ask their question directly from author. And if there is anything, Fatima also can ask that. But there is an honor that we have Professor Abu Tahun from Jordan with us, and also Professor Zimet from Australia with us as well. So before we officially start, I want to ask both of them to give us some introduction, and then we start. Professor Zimet, please. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Professor Nekufar. As always, this is a wonderful opportunity. I can only highly recommend, and every time I log on, I always learn something new. I've been around endodontics for a long time, but these programs are a very different way of learning, and I can only continue to commend this style of practice. So congratulations to you. Thank you very much to our author and our Dr. Bastuk, to Dr. Bastuk, to provide us the insight that I'm looking forward to. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's very important for us to have you between us, and always your comments are very, very useful and very, I think, fruitful for our meeting. Professor Abu Tahun, please.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed. First of all, we are really sad for the events in Turkey and Syria. I would like to share my grief with my colleagues from Turkey, and I wish hopefully very soon everything will be back to normal again in these 2 great countries. And thank you for this great session, very great session. You always surprise us with your initiatives and your ideas. This new, let's say, image of the journal will add more and more knowledge and more ideas, and will lead to better discussion, better conclusions, and better understanding. So thank you very much, and so as not to take the time for us, we can start to go straight forward to the point.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's start it. So before I ask Fatima to start the presentation, I want to ask a simple question from Dr. Ji Wook Jeong. How we can pronounce your name?
I actually studied, you know, it's
All right, so
Jeong.
you try.
It's-
Yes, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's Jeong.
Right, that's correct.
All
Exactly.
right, good, good. Okay,
That's-
Fatima, the stage is yours. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for all the participants. Before I start, I'd like to also share my screen to mention a little bit about the earthquake that happened in Turkey and Syria, which was devastating. And if you want to take action, actually, you can log on to Red Crescent of Turkey or Red Cross in your countries to help people in that area, those in need in that area. And I'd also like to thank all of your countries for sending us your rescue teams. And it's been quite amazing that all the countries actually united when a disaster happened. So these are some of the countries that sent us their rescue teams. I'd like to express my gratitude once again. And so I will go on. I know that we have only 45 minutes for this part of the session, and then we will continue with the case presentation part. So today, it is actually, I really enjoyed reading this article because I have been using calcium silicate-based canal sealers for the last 3 years solely. I only use calcium silicate-based root canal sealers. So it is exciting for me to read this article. So we have Dr. Jeong Wook here. And for those who didn't have a chance to read the article or to read the abstract, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an idea about the aim. So that was for the retrievability of calcium silicate-based sealers during root canal treatment. And there were 3 different root canal sealers using 3 different solutions or no solution. I'm going to present the flow chart later on, but before I begin, I'd like to ask all the participants, what are your main concerns in retreating a canal filled with bioceramic sealers? I'd really like to hear your thoughts about this.
Can I start by giving you my answer, and others also please unmute themselves and talk. There is no need to just, you can unmute yourself and talk. My concern is to make sure that I remove all the particles of the bioceramic if it didn't work. So if I fill the root canal, for example, short, I prefer actually to remove that all before I clean the canal again. So the most important thing is sometimes I cannot even penetrate when I have a very hard material or cement inside the root canal. Professor Abu Tahan, what do you think? What is your concern when you do retreatment when a canal filled by bioceramic? Please unmute yourself.
Thank God, until now, I don't have any failed cases with using bioceramic.
Can you talk a bit louder, please, or in front of your microphone? Yeah, better.
Yeah. As I told you, thank God till now I didn't retreat any case with bioceramic because most of the cases, no, at least I have no patient who return to me.
Professor, we cannot hear you very well. Professor Abu Tahan, please come closer. Yes.
Yes, I have no patients coming back to me with symptoms with the cases I have worked with bioceramics. The fact is that I have impressive results also with these cases also. So I don't have any experience with failed cases. Let me be frank with you, but I would like to hear from others. Till now, I don't have patients coming back with failures. So
okay. Daria, do you want to add anything? Or Ali, do you want to add anything? Daria, go ahead.
Thank you, Professor. And also, first of all, thank you for your invitation. It's a nice session for us. I am not regularly using the bioceramic sealers because of the, the retrievability facilitations. It's not really easy. We already had a study about that, and it was published in Journal of Endodontics. And we used Fill Apex as the root canal sealer, and it was really impossible to retreat it. So in our study, we used a single cone technique, and we wanted to find a way to reach the apex with that, with the help of that cone. So in my regular cases, I'm not sure about using just bioceramic sealers, but maybe we can use them with a single cone technique. I believe it's better. However, I think we need a good record of the treatment ways. For example, we should record which sealer we used before, and so if we need any retreatment procedure in future, we should know what we are dealing with. So unfortunately, this is not only enough for us. Everybody should use it, because a patient is going to come us, maybe it is filled with a bioceramic sealer, and I can say that nowadays it will be more frequent, because more dentists are using bioceramic sealers more day by day. But it's not really it's not really common to record the sealers, the brand of the sealers, or the base of the sealer. So I think it's the main concern that we have about using that kind of sealers.
Okay, Ali, do you want just to add in 1 minute, say what is your concern?
Yes, thank you for this nice presentation. And for 1 year, I mostly use bioceramic sealer with a single cone, but till now, no one come back for retreatment.
Okay.
So I don't have the experience with that.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. Fatima, please.
Okay, I'd like to hear the thoughts of Dr. Jeong too, because this is what the article says. It says that in a recent survey, 44% of the dentists considered calcium silicate-based sealers were non-retrievable. So I think that was the main idea behind this whole article, behind this whole study. So here is the methods. I really enjoy it when I see a flow chart of the methodology, and as it is as clear as day right now. They used 130 teeth. They did the decoronation. We're going to talk about this. And they did the root canal preparation up to size 35. And they did obturation using 3 different sealers. And for each sealer, they used 3 different irrigation solutions for the retreatment, and then another group without any solution at all. So again, this is how it looks like when it was when they did the confit, then the obturation, and then the retreatment. So I read the article. I know the intention behind it, but can you tell us, Doctor, why you intentionally fit gutta perca 2 millimeters short of the apices?
So thank you for asking me about that. So this sample design is it's only for the experimental design. So the clinical is rare to see this situation. The reason we have this sample design, because we really want to know the retrievability of bioceramic sealer. But by making this design, and then we can purely test retrievability of the sealer, because when we retreat the root canal, we need to remove the gutta percha. And also, if it's the curved canal, if it's any ramification like accessory canals or any other ramification or acute curvature at the end of the root canal, and then that might be another, the other variable factors. So we really want to, make a standardization of our samples by making, the intentional, the instrumentation to all the working lengths by size, the 3504, and then intentionally, to put the master cone 2 millimeters shorter. So the last 2 millimeter of the root canal was already instrumented by size 3504, and then was filled with the bioceramic sealers. So when we try to retrieve the the bioceramic sealer, we can only handle with sealer, not dentin tissue, like that. So that's the reason we intentionally make this experimental sample design. So I really want to tell you, this is not your the scenario in our clinic normally, but we really want to do the purely retrievability of bioceramic sealer with this sample design.
I actually really like this design. You not only search for the retrievability of the gutta perca, but also search for the retrievability of the calcium silicate-based sealer. So I would like to ask another question, because I read several articles about the decoronation of the teeth, and I saw that in some experimental designs, they decoronated it at 13, at 14, at 16 millimeters. This one's at 11 millimeters. Is there a standardization in the decoronation length? And how did you decide that you wanted to decoronate it at 11 millimeters?
Yeah, we want to make a standardization in the working length, number one, and then by making the 11 millimeter, and then that pretty the enough length to test see the retreatability. So by removing gutta aperture, and because when we remove the gutta aperture by rotary instrument, and then we need to by doing this way, and then we can test it, we really try to mimic the regular root canal treatment. So other than that, we don't have any other some special the reason. So I believe that doesn't have to be the 11 millimeter specifically, but we don't want to include the clinical crown, or also we need to make the enough length of the root segment, the short root segment. But I think that my opinion in this study, so this the length of the working length here, the decoronation by decoronation, it's not the main factor to see the the result.
Yeah, but if you decoronated it at 16 millimeters, for example, maybe the chair time would have been increased. So
Right.
For the comparability with other studies, this is actually something that I'm wondering in general. There is no standardization in the decoronation length as far as I know. Dr. Nekufar, have you got any idea about that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, decoronation, sometimes we discuss and say that if we do such a things in laboratory studies or ex vivo studies, we cannot claim that this is completely simulate the clinical situation. On the other hand, we need to make sure that we are consistent in all of our specimens to make sure that there is no co-funding variables interfere with the test that we want to do that. This is actually the way that in ex vivo study or in vitro study, we should always be consistent and get rid of all the co-funding variables. But obviously, if others also can help and give us the idea and comments, that would be great. Professor Zimet, what do you think? Or Professor Pavlik, Professor Abutan, others, what do you think? Is it necessary to decoronate before we initiate this type of studies or not?
Decoronization is actually a must, but what I'm asking is there is no standardization whatsoever. So for the comparability, We cannot compare these results with another study that used 16 millimeters of decoronated
Oh, so you're
root.
talking about the
For example,
length of the root.
yes, yes, exactly.
All right. Yeah. I think this is, again, as far as in our study, we are consistent enough, 11 millimeter. There is no difference between that with others because there is no need to compare the result of these studies together. So I'm not worried about such a thing. So I think as far as the standardization by the researcher is followed, that's enough. There is no problem. Again, for the decoronation, I'm not sure this is a must because in some studies I find it that they didn't remove the coronal part and they just create a standard access cavity to simulate the clinical situation. So let's see what the author thinks about that. What do you think, Jeong? What do you think? Do you think it's better just to leave the coronal part with access cavity or not? And also about the standardization of the length as well, both of them.
So it's very difficult to standardize all the samples because when it comes to standardization, when you read papers, some the groups they tested the mandibular molar, some people they use maxillary molar, we use the single rooted tooth, and some people use only anterior, some people use it's very variable. So it's from the choice of the which tooth also is different, and also thank you for the mentioning about this the decoronation and then the standardization by some specific millimeter. So they really vary. So I believe that very hard to standardize all the samples, but I believe that we need to make control group, because we want to experiment some some specific group. So to show to justify our result, we need to show the the control group. So that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Can I add something? Of course, there is a necessary item to decoronate, especially when we are using different solutions to remove, for example, the root filling, actually, the root filling in general, the gutta-percha sealer. Because as far as you know, in clinical situation, we can have an access cavity. So in this access cavity, we have a reservoir for the solution to remove the filling material or to dissolve the filling material. But
actually the results are quite opposite, by the way, Dr. Hadi.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But if we remove this confounder, we can have equal situation for all the roots. But there is a question whether in this study the authors have used different or similar roots, root anatomies. As far as I see from the picture, I see different types of roots, probably mesobuccal roots of molars, large roots, thin roots. They are different and they can have different behavior in response to removal procedures. I can have I would like to raise another question, whether the width or the dimensions of the roots are standardized or not.
Dr. Jeong.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't. Just very accidentally, I couldn't really hear the whole the question. So can you?
The question was about the coronation, because when we keep the coronal part, then we have a good reservoir for whatever we want actually to use as a solution to dissolve the gutta-percha or the sealer. So what type of reservoir did you use with 11 millimeter?
Dr. Nekufar, actually the question was about the sizes of the roots, because
that was another question, the different types of the roots.
Yes. For example, in this X-ray, it is seen that some of the roots are thinner, some of the roots are wider. Do you think it affected the outcome of the study?
So you asked me, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So I believe here's the root canal morphology. It's not really on the the major factor here, or because we instrumented size 3504. That's a pretty good the size to do it, and also when we retrieve these cases in the samples, to remove gutter aperture, even without solvent, it's not a big deal. So very easily we can remove the the gutter aperture cone. So also I believe that my clinical experience and then also the experiment experience, the gutter aperture and then the bioceramic sealer, they are not really adhesive each other. So also the clinical wise, when I have the patients in the clinic, when I remove gutter aperture, it's not a big deal. So I believe that the coronal portion and the coronal 1/3, middle 1/3 is not major factor to affect our retreatability unless canal is really curved. So I think here's we don't use the chloroform here, but in the chair side, when I face very the difficult case, I use chloroform because but again, so by using chloroform, or if it's just a regular case without chloroform solvent, it's not a big deal to remove gutter aperture cone. But I believe it's very hard to remove the bioceramic sealer sometimes, not all the time. So when I go to AAE conference and then some people say, I don't have any problem to retreat the cases containing bioceramic sealer. Some people say like that, but my experience, if it's really obturated the very nicely, very beautifully, it's a very beautiful the obturation. And then when I try to remove the remove gutter aperture, it's not a big deal. But when I try to remove the sealer, that might be a problem. So coming back to our sample design, so we already instrumented pretty good enough size, 3504 size, and then also that's a good size, and also because this is the gutter aperture cone with the bioceramic sealer combination, so it's not a big deal to remove gutter aperture. So I think that in this study design, we wanna more focus on the apical 1/3. So when we retrieve it, we need to extend the working length if it's failed with the short obturation. So that's the part we need to really more focus on, I believe. Thank you.
So
I think Professor Al-Hawaizi has a comment. Professor Al-Hawaizi, the president of Iraqi Association of Endodontics. Please go ahead.
Hello, doctor. It's very nice that I'm with you again. Thank you very much for this topic. It's really very nice and very clinical. I was wondering if I decoronate and have a root that's 11 millimeters in length, and we presume that the apical 2 millimeters is going to be sealer, so that the gutter aperture will be left with only 9 millimeters. I think this is a pretty easy case for removal of retreatment. So it doesn't really simulate the clinical life. That's why I can see results of regaining the apical patency up to 100%. Really, I would have liked to simulate the clinical life because it gives me a better understanding of how to remove or retreat such a case with bioceramic sealers. And thank you very much.
Okay, Jeong, please.
Yeah. So thank you for the mentioning about that. So I totally agree with that. So basically that is our the plans exactly. So we wanna have this test first, and then we wanna move on the next step. So recently we also almost finished completed our experiment the retrievability of calcium silicate sealer more close to real study design, real clinical the scenario. So this sample design, we intentionally make this the design to see only purely retrievability of the bioceramic sealer. So now we know that we understand, we figure out their property of the bioceramic sealers, and then now it's time to the test the more close to the clinical scenario.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jeong. In terms of methodology, I have also some other questions. One of the questions is, why did you choose the irrigation solutions that you chose in the study? And there was also no mentioning about the preparation of the carbonated water in the methodology nor in the discussion section. So this is the additional question. So I'd like you to answer these. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for thank you for the questions. So basically, we look up the literature and also the the chemistry part, and because according to head study, Texas A&M, they found that they tested the mandibular molar, medial root canal. They use that pretty probably curved canal, and then also they use chloroform, and then they try to remove retreat the cases containing calcium silicate sealer. And what they found that the calcium silicate sealer is resistant to solvent. So it makes sense. The H plus, like any others, traditional sealer, they can dissolve by the solvent, the chloroform or the other solvent. But this calcium silicate is totally different properties. So it's a type of aggregate. It's a kind of concrete. It's like very fine powder. The aggregates. It's a totally different cement sealers to compare to H plus any other the traditional sealer. So it's very obvious. It is resistant to solvent, those the chloroform. So however, so we thought that what about we try to use some acid, because acid can weaken this aggregate. Also, carbonate water, when we look at the carbonate water, I also mentioned it in discussion part. Carbonate water has the carbon dioxide gas. That this carbon dioxide gas can interact with the calcium hydroxide inside calcium silicate sealer. So because calcium silicate sealer, when they said they contains calcium hydroxide inside. So just to make the theory, what if the carbon dioxide gas interact with the calcium hydroxide, and then the calcium hydroxide can dissolve, and then they can release, and then can make some void inside, and then we can soften this type of sealer, and then when we try to retrieve by the hand instrument file, and then we can break it. That was our idea. But so before that, and then we tested it, the compressive strength. We didn't show here in the result, but we made a pilot study. So we tested it, the compressive strength per each, the calcium silicate sealer with, this each, this, carbonate water, acetic acid, that, the experiment, and then we found that pretty still good, pretty compressive strength after the, the liquid, but carbonate water, when we found that, it's a little bit less compressive strength. So we thought that maybe, when we tested it in the tooth, maybe carbonate water could work, but it didn't. So I think that, so that theoretically it could make sense, but reality didn't, didn't work. And the second question, how we did prepare the carbonate water, because that's also is a really good question, I believe. That one also is really important, because if we produce carbonate water, because carbonate water, it's not really stabilized form. So once we make it, and then, because when we retreat these samples, we have many, the samples, large sample sizes. When we try it, the carbonate water can be changed. So our idea is that we just bought, the carbonate water in HEB. It's one of the groceries in the United States. So we bought, the multiple cans, and then when we tested it, we, the operator was blinded, and then, on the other side, someone prepared the carbonate water in the syringe when we tested it. So that one was a very, the very fresh carbonate water just opened.
So you bought it from the pharmacy, actually. You didn't prepare the carbonated water. Okay. I think we have questions.
Yes. Can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Hadi, before you, this is Kumar's turn to ask his question.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Dr. Nazari, please. And then Mahdi, and then you, Hadi. Kumar, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I have the questions. As you know, the interaction between two carbonated water and calcium is too rich.
Kumar, we cannot hear you very well. Sorry, Kumar. We cannot hear you very well.
It's important to show.
The connection might be
How about
unstable.
Yeah, I think there's a problem, but Kumar's already typed his question. Jeong, the question is, carbonated water hasn't got any antibacterial effect. And the question is about the reason that you use this. I think, let me read it from the chat box, because he said carbonated water is not the usual irrigant because does not meet root canal sealer's property, or carbonated water has no tissue removal or bactericidal effect. So, okay, what's the answer?
Yeah, that is our goal of this, the using, choosing this, the liquid irrigant. Our purpose, of this, the liquid, how to weaken, how to dissolve calcium silicate sealer. So we think about study design, the clinical scenario, short obturation. So when we confront, the case, it's failed with short obturation, and then how we handle it. That's our scenario. If we cannot extend, the working length, if we cannot gain, the apical patency according to Ing study, the international IJ, so that's a very major factor. So we need to extend our working length. So if we face, it was already set, calcium silicate sealer in the middle, we need to break it, we need to penetrate it. After then, if we penetrate it, and then we can re-instrument it in the larger size.
And also you find that it's not, sorry to interrupt you, Jeong. Sorry to interrupt you. So you also said that the interaction between carbonated water and calcium wasn't very useful. Am I right? So it didn't work. Carbonated water is not a good solvent or is not a good weaker irritant for that. Am I right?
Right. Yeah, you're right. So you're right. So we just thought about carbonate water, for retreatment, but it didn't work well.
Okay.
So
okay. I think that's what QMAS try also to emphasize on that. Ma'am, because of the time, I want to go to another question. Please, Dr. Vatanpur, Dr. Mahdi, please go ahead and ask your question or give us your comment.
Good evening, everybody. I want to know which type of gutta percha did you use in your study? I mean that it was 2% or more taper gutta percha, single meshed or coated gutta percha.
yeah, this is coated gutta percha. In our clinic,
And
we
single
use
meshed?
only coated gutta percha. Yeah.
And single meshed?
Sorry?
It was single meshed gutta percha or only tapered, for example, 4% tapered?
So what was the taper? 4%.
Then it means that it was completely possible that you didn't have any complete adaptation with the wall of the canal, yes?
It's possible.
And did you sure that your sealer was set completely?
Yes.
Because I didn't find in your article about it.
So
Actually,
we
it stayed there for 21 days, according to the article.
So that all sealer set, and then before this, the exam, the experiment, we also had a pilot study, and not only in the tooth, but also we, the in vitro, we just, make the sealer set, and then we measure the compressive strength, and then it's pretty, almost 25 megapascal. So the sealer, the compressive strength, by looking at, and then we sure the sealer set. Yeah, and also I want to mention it, the sample design, because even though some variability, the like fin or the oval shape or in the root canal. So also when we look at the the some morphology study, when the root canal get close to the apical foramen, the shape is closer to round shape. So, but if we also we instrumented 35 for size, that's a kind of the good size by instrumenting in that. So we believe that last the 3 to 4 millimeter of the the root segment, apical 1/3 area, I think that I believe it's a pretty standardized, and then also the really don't see. I don't really believe there's a lot of the spaces in between the root dentin wall and gutta percha. Yeah, you're right. But the middle 1/3 area, coronal area, probably there's the some spaces between the gutta percha and dentin. But the last the 4 to 5 millimeter area, that probably it's not really much the space in between.
Okay.
Thank you very much for all the participants for your participation. But I'd like to keep going if it's okay. I have so many
but
more
there's
questions.
another question. Let's see if there's another question or not. Hadi, do you want to raise your question or we can carry on?
Sorry, Dr.
Yes, just I want to ask a very small question. Where did this idea come from? I mean, the interaction between carbonated water and calcium silicate cements. Is there any evidence behind that or not?
So that also that's a good question. I just I thought about initially, that I thought about some cave. So like, you know, in the nature, we can see this, you know, the chemical reaction in the nature. But problem is that normally this, you know, the reaction, the interaction occurs very long time, like for 100, you know, some, you know, several thousand years, you know, and then we can see some beautiful nature in the world. So that's what I thought about that. But you know, our sealer inside the tooth is very tiny. So maybe, you know, who knows? It could be, you know, the possible. So thought about this, you know, the idea.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Fatima, please carry on.
Okay. So there was also no mention about the hypothesis. So when you first started this study, what were you expecting the outcome to be?
So
did you expect this outcome?
Sorry?
When you first started this study, what was your hypothesis? What did you think when you first started it?
So in this study, you know, the number one, I really couldn't expect, you know, this control group without irrigant will show higher success rate and shorter chair time. I just thought that maybe carbonate water or acid. However, when we look at the result, and then we found that, you know, the control group, no irrigant has better penetration rate and shorter chair time. So this is a very surprising result to us. So yeah, that's you know, I really didn't expect, you know, this control group could be better than the other experimental group, but we just found it. This is what it is.
Okay, thank you very much. It was an interesting finding, by the way. I didn't expect it to read that too, actually. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the retreatment protocol. I see that you used 2 milliliters of irrigants when you first used D1 and D2. And then after using D3, you used 3 milliliters of the testing solution again. So when we are talking about the study, actually we're talking about 5 milliliters of the irrigant solution used, right? Only 5 milliliters, no more than that. Or did you do it repeatedly?
Do you mean the experimental irrigant, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we keep using it. So when we're using it, we keep using it.
You kept using it. Okay.
We kept using it. Yeah.
Okay. So these are the results. For those who didn't have a chance to read the article, the results are showing us that the neo-sealer group has 100% of success rate of apical patency and has definitely a shorter chair time comparing to the others. And if you take a look at the other sealers, you can see that more than half of the specimens actually couldn't reach the patency. So, okay, so this is how it is in written. So again, in the discussion section, there was only, sorry about that. There was not a huge discussion about why the no solution group was superior. So I'd like to ask you this. Why do you think the no solution group was superior?
Yeah, so one of the references, you know, that we made here. So there's another article in, you know, the concrete, you know, the material. So they found that, you know, the concrete has that kind of porous structure. Concrete has a lot of, you know, the pores inside, right? So they tested it, you know, the wet concrete and dry concrete, and they tried to destroy. by their experiment. Now, what they found that, the more cracks, more propagating cracks, or, the destruction in dried concrete. So I think that there might be, that they talking about, the poor liquid, the poor liquid energy. So if this aggregate material contains liquid in the pores, and then that might be dampen the, the energy of, the destroying action. So yeah, I think that, the dried structure, that some, we have object with, a lot of pores inside, and then that structure, it's a wet, and if it's a dried, and then when we try to break it, and then which one could be, resistant, and then, yeah, that might be, the at some point, the maybe, there could be, I think that an answer for us, but again, this is just, just thinking about it. No evidence in the dentistry yet. So this is what we're thinking here.
And the thing is, the first question that came up to my mind was that the no solution would cause instrument breakage. And and in the discussion part again, the only file that was separated was in the no solution group. So it is in favor of my argument. So what could possibly be an alternative to no solution?
Yeah, that's right. So this is a totally, the design for the experiment to see the retrievability of calcium silicate sealer. So I don't want to apply this in the way to my chair side. That's right. If there's no solution, because the enrichment cases, it's also if the root canal was done like several years ago, even gutter puncture is very stiff. So without solution, when we try to remove and then get the patency, and then very hard to distinguish it between dentin and gutter puncture. Also the sealer. So kind of, I would say that, it could be, has some, the problem, that separation, or, the making a latch or transportation. So like there's a lot of clinical obstacles. So that one totally also, I would say, the other study designs later, we need to do it in the future. And
I'd like to discuss a little bit from the discussion section as well. And this is the question that I'd like to ask, because why do you think the reason for shorter chair time and 100% apical patency reach in neosealer group? Because in the discussion, only the compressive strength was discussed. So I couldn't see any other reason why the neosealer group had this outcome and the others did not.
Right. So we had the pilot study with compressive strength to measure it, and then we found that carbonate water show a little bit better result. The carbonate water weakened the silicate sealer in compressive strength, but it's not significantly different, but a little bit lower compressive strength, and then we move up, move on this the ex vivo study. So when we see the neosealer, there's no significant the less compressive strength, lower compressive strength, and then we really didn't expect that this the very shorter chair time, the more high, the highest, the success rate of gaining patency. So, but it turns out, the neo-MTA sealer, neo-sealer group has, very retrievable. So since we have only compressive strength, and then compressive strength shows very or no significant difference each other. So we believe that what if we measure the shear strength or tensile strength? Then might be if we see the the different result, and then maybe when it comes to retrievability, better to measure the shear strength or especially shear strength, but the shear strength or tensile strength we need to measure it rather than compressive strength. But we can include compressive strength or the different types of test, and then we can compare it. So that also, I believe that could be a good study design in the future, because
Are you working on it right now?
Yeah. So we're working on it. Yeah.
Okay, so before we go further,
we
there are
need
some
to- we
more
need to
questions.
find a good study design though. Yeah.
Okay, there are some more questions actually. One, they type it here. One is about the reservoir. One of the participants believes that when we don't have the coronal part, we don't have enough reservoir for the liquid. That can be one of the reasons that your liquid didn't work. What do you think about it? But please answer very quickly.
Yeah, so I think that to remove gutter aperture, it's not a really big deal. And after we remove the gutter aperture, I think the pretty good spaces to use the the irrigant in this sample design.
Another question was about the use of ultrasonic. Why you didn't use ultrasonic? Because ultrasonication may help for removal as well. What do you think about that?
That's a very good idea, and also we also thought about that, but we already have some subgroups, and then to show the the statistical result is too much here in this too many the subgroups already.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Another question is about the apical patency. How you are sure this is not a perforation on the other side or on the accessory side of the canal rather than just opening the patency? So how you manage to understand the difference between patency and the apical perforation?
In this study design, right?
Yes.
So this is extracted teeth. So it's clear to see it. We can see apical foramen area is already instrumented. So the apical foramen, we can see the cilia even, right? All white,
yes.
The color is white, and then we can see the cilia. And then after we, get the patency, gain the patency, and then we can see the fire, and then we done.
So the question is, during the retreatment of this type of cases with the bioceramics, is it really necessary to gain and make sure that our patency is open, or is it the goal or not? So the question is that.
So this is not the clinical, the scenario. We wanna test it, we wanna test it, the penetratability of, the BC sealer. So in the real study, the real clinical scenario, we need to comprehensively, evaluate it and then plan, plan it how to increase the success rate in our retreatment. So that's my answer. Yeah, it could.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you very much. And the next question is by Babak Zandi. Professor Babak Zandi, please go ahead. Babak, we cannot hear you, unfortunately. It seems that your microphone is not working. So please reopen it. Nope. No. Okay. Mahdi, please go ahead. Dr. Vatanpur.
Okay. Let me to ask some question about the statistical analysis. I want to know, how did you determine the sample size of each group?
Yeah. So when we look up the the health study, the Texas A&M, that's the probably, I believe, that's the first study looking at the retrievability of calcium silicate sealer, and then their sample size, and then we're looking at the sample size, and then we collect, you know, as many as teeth, and then we're looking at, you know, the teeth, and then we, you know, divide into subgroups, and then, you know, compared to health study, and then our sample size will be, you know, already enough. And then we decided to go ahead.
But as you know, between two of your group, there is no significant difference, and it can be because the small sample size. Did you calculate power analysis?
No, we didn't, you know, we didn't run the power analysis. So that's we collected, I believe, 130, you know, 130 teeth. And then, you know, our resident, you know, that's the maximum, you know, the teeth sample, the teeth, and then still we need to exclude some, you know, the teeth. So and then we just, you know, the verify it, you know, looking at the, you know, the previous literature. You're right. So the sample size, I asked, you know, my resident to collect, you know, at least 30 teeth per group, but it's very hard to, you know, to collect all teeth. And then so by the way, the resident already graduated several years ago, so he couldn't be here. He's practicing, you know, the other state. By the way, so when we look at the you know, the previous study, and then you know, we can, you know, we can run this, you know, the study with this sample size, and then we also discussed our sample size with the statistician when we get the result, and then he said that, you know, oh, this is, you know, our, you know, the statistician's point. He said that, I mean, overall, he said that it's good, it's fine. But I want to add one more thing here in the statistics. You know, hello, can you?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So in the statistic, you know, you know, the R-scale value, it's not that high. So which means that we need to admit, you know, some other variable factors that we really couldn't recognize. So we need to admit our study results is very experimental, and then also it could be wrong as well. So we need to do more. We need to elaborate study design, and also also thinking about, you know, the sample size. We have to do that later in the future. That I really agree with that.
Okay.
And
okay, yeah, please.
My last question is about your statistical analysis. As you know, the main goal of you in this study was the patency, the success rate of patency, and this is a nominal variable, and the ANOVA is not suitable for analysis of the nominal variable. What's your opinion about it?
Can you ask me again? I couldn't understand it. Can you ask me?
It's about the statistical test that Dr. Vatanpur thinks that you didn't choose the suitable test. Dr. Vatanpur, please repeat.
Because one of your main variable is success rate of the patency, and this is nominal variable, and ANOVA only is suitable for continuous variable. It is not suitable for nominal variable. And on the other hand, also, you had two factors with several levels in each of them. And first of all, you should emphasize and you should confirm that there was not any interaction between two factors. For example, as a reader, I should note that there was no interaction between type of your solution and type of your sealer.
The last question, I don't think I fully understand it. But I want to answer you, we really didn't do it, that nominal way, but yeah, we admit it. And then, but when we designed this study, and then we can think based on my experience, my clinical experience, and another, some multiple pilot, the experiments, and then we believe that the success and fail, that one we can make the the study design in this model. But the last question, I don't think I couldn't fully understand it.
Yeah, I think that's somehow a comment, Dr. Jeong, and this is good actually, because we want actually to also hear the idea of others. So there is no need actually to directly respond that one. Don't worry about that. Matty, is there anything else that you want to add, or are you all right?
No,
Can we move to
thank
Babak?
you.
Okay, then. Thank you very much, Matty, for your comment. I know you are not very well, and thanks for joining. Babak, please go ahead. I think this time we can
Do you
hear
have
you.
my
But
voice?
make it a bit quicker, please. Yes, yes,
Do you have
very
my
well.
voice? Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. Good evening to all professor. And my main question is about technique and canal preparation before the retreatment, because I think the canal preparation before the retreatment is so important, more important than taking bypass the bioceramic or others. For example, I saw that the size of all of the canal is 35.4%, and I saw the central maxillary incisor, mandibular incisor, and I saw in the picture there is some root that the apical constriction and apical foramen is laterally and higher than apical than apex, and I have no information about the apical foramen and apical preparation in the first preparation. For example, do we have a apical control zone? Do we have apical stop with patency, or do we have apical stop without patency in the first preparation? It's obvious that many of our retreatment, if we don't have preparation in the first, we don't have patency in our first preparation, with zinc oxide and gutta percha, we can't bypass the canal. But most of our bioceramic filling filling material, we can bypass them if we have apical control zone, or if we have patency before our treatment. And
So if
I have no
summarize,
information.
Babak, if I summarize your question, so the main question,
Yes.
Professor Jeong, is about the preparation of the canal prior to
Yes.
obturation, prior your
Yes.
test, because it
Yes.
may have an effect. What do you think? And can you explain
Yes.
that?
Thank you.
So the before obturation, our canal preparation is. Please let me understand. Can you
Yeah. So the
elaborate
question
more?
is, because if you open the patency prior to obturation, it helps more for the next step. But in reality, in the clinical situation, we may not open the patency, and then we need retreatment. So if you open the patency, so it helps you to do it easier for the retreatment. I think if I understand Babak's question, this is that.
Yes.
No,
Correct. Yes. That's
yeah,
my
thank you.
question.
Thank you for the elaboration. That now I'm clearly. Yeah, that's clearly correct. So I agree with that. So this is the study design for this. I'm really interested in retreatment in the root canal cases containing calcium silicate sealer. So so this is kind of the first or second step like this, and then we wanna move on the next step. So we already have some the study result, but we wanna elaborate further, and then we want to make it closer to the experiment, the study design close to real clinical scenario. But that design also is not the clinical wise, it's not the same though.
So let's say you were very lucky that you get the acceptance from Journal of Endodontics. So because usually they create a lot of problem when we have this type of questions. By the way, thank you very much, Jeong, for the explanation of that issue as well. There are some other questions, but I think because of the time, I am going to ask Fatima to carry on. Fatima, please go ahead.
Okay. Actually, as I told you, I've been doing the root canal treatments with bioceramics only for the last 3 years, and I'm not as talented as Dr. Ibrahim, so I have some retreatment cases, and I have actually in the last 3 years I have 3 retreatment cases. 2 of them had flare-ups, so I had to do the retreatments in less than 2 weeks, so in a week or in 10 days or something like that. So in those cases, it was quite easy to do the retreatment. But another case, which was a coronal leakage case, I had to do the retreatment after 1.5 years. And it was one of the most difficult cases that I dealt with because I couldn't actually reach the patency. And I generally use Cerasil, by the way. And I had a ledge formation, so I couldn't reach the patency. So would the results be any different after a longer period of time? This is my question for you.
So the question to me, right?
Sorry?
Yes.
Yeah, the question's for you, Dr. Jeong.
So that's really, I really, agree with that, because there are a lot of opinions, but it's not really the evidence-based way. Oh, my retreatment is no problem. Some people really struggle. They have some experience to struggle with retrieve the calcium silicate sealer. Me same, so did I. So some cases I could divide by 2. Very easy case, very difficult case. So the easy case means also, I want to refer to Hess study, the JOE, from Texas A&M. So
yeah, I read the study, by the way. It's a good study.
Yeah.
It's a good study.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's a good study, by the way, the one that you are mentioning.
Right. So if the sealer didn't set and very easy to retrieve, right?
Yes.
Number 2, if it's a lot of voids inside the sealer and then easy to penetrate it, we can break it. So, but if the previous root canal is beautifully done, last couple of like 2 or 3 millimeter sealer penetrated all the ramification in the curvature, like that way, and then sealer is set, I believe it's clinically very hard to penetrate. We also very recently had the study, the project we completed. That's also the very same to this result. But when you look at the very new paper in JOE in January, or also that's from the Texas A&M, they showed the 100% penetratability, retrievability. So that one is very close to our study design, sample design, but I'm wondering if the really sealer penetrate last to 1.5 millimeter in the untreated canal. So we need to standardize it. So it's easy to, if there's no sealer, and then easy to retrieve. But we need to really verify it, show it, the sealer, the set in the last couple of millimeter or 2 millimeter or whatever. Then we need to try to retrieve it, because then one we have concern about that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your answer. And here comes my final question. What do you think could further facilitate the retreatment of bioceramic sealers?
Wow, that's a really great question.
Yeah, that's a clinical question.
So far, based on what I found, I think that rather than focusing on the chemical reaction, but maybe the supplementary could work, but I think that probably need to think about more mechanical, the device or the energy or like that. So I remember that one of the questions, the asking about ultrasonic. I think that also that could be good, the study, the project idea.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Jeong Ji Wook. And I think we've already exceeded our time. It should have been 45 minutes, but now I see that it's 1 hour and 15 minutes already.
No,
So
okay,
we're
no worries.
going to proceed with the case presentation conference. So it's up to you, Dr. Nekufar.
Okay, thank you very much, Fatima. Indeed, I know the situation in Turkey is very harsh, very difficult. We always send our prayer and sympathy to all Turkish and Syrian sisters and brothers. And I hope it's becoming better, the situation very soon. Thank you very much, Professor Jeong, for joining us, because I know it's very difficult for the author to accept our invitation, because we put you in a very difficult situation, ask you hundreds and hundreds of questions. There are more questions in the chat box, but as Fatima mentioned, because we are moving to the second part of our sessions, today we are going actually to start a new program as well, which is about case presentation series or case conference presentation. So today I'm just going to give a taste of that to the audience, and then hopefully in the future we are going to gather all the feedbacks from you to decide what to do. So the second part of today, before we send the certificate online to both of you and send over thanks again to both of you, we are now, as a test, have a kickoff meeting of case presentation conference. So as you know, in orthodontic situation, when we have an orthodontic treatment like these cases that you can see, some unwanted or sometimes very bad situation, very bad consequences may happen like that. External root resorption, internal root resorption, problems like that is very unwanted and unfaithful for the patient. And also is very difficult for the orthodontist when such a things may happen. So today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask you, all the participants, to help us. And in this type of the case presentation, we are going to ask you to help us for the treatment of cases that we already want to start the treatment for them and get your idea out of it. So the first case, which is also just a sample of this type of conferences, is a case that referred to me by one of my orthodontic colleagues who asked me actually to evaluate this lower molar, first molar, lower right first molar in this lady. And the patient was 35 years old, a female patient. And she was the candidate for orthodontic treatment. So I asked actually for the dental history. So as you can see in this panoramic and this pre-apical view, the history of this case was an impacted second premolar, which was removed by the oral surgeon prior to initiation of the orthodontic treatment. So, and then the patient referred to me for the treatment of this particular case. And I just checked the probing depths. There were no probing defect around the tooth. And also I checked the sensibility or vitality test, and all the response from the vitality test or sensibility test was positive. So my understanding was the tooth looks vital. So now the question is, please help me by just unmute your microphone and help me and tell me What should we do for this type of cases? Please, any of you start, or maybe if any of you have any question about the history of this case or any suggestion, please help me. It seems Dr. Jeong is going to talk. Dr. Jeong, please, what do you think about what should we do?
Thank you for asking me about that. So if this is my patient, I think that based on your the clinical exam, there's no asymptomatic, and the vitality test shows it's normal. But the problem is that roots was already reserved by the impacted tooth. But I really want to monitor it, and then if I see any signs of infection, and then then I will just good to go. I will give the option the endodontic treatment or extraction. But if it's asymptomatic, and then I will monitor, keep doing the vitality test, and then if it's normal, and then I want to keep monitoring it. Here's the
is it okay to apply the orthodontic force on that? The question is because orthodontic wants to apply the force and use it as an anchor or even move it. Do you think is it suitable for that purpose?
That one very difficult question, because I don't know the orthodontic treatment, and I have to have discussion with the orthodontist. What's the plan? What they want to which teeth will maybe used by anchor, which tooth will be used as anchor, or what's the plan? The orthodontic plan will be executed, and I want to listen to it. But so
okay, let's see what others are going to add to this. Professor Zimmet, please.
Is it possible for the orthodontist to delay treatment by about 6 months so we can get some sort of assessment and of the healing response? Because as Dr. Jeong
the answer is yes, because orthodontists asked me to decide what to do. Is it better to wait and monitor, as Dr. Jeong said, close monitoring? Yes. If I say, please don't apply any force, yes, possible. The answer is yes. But the question is, should we intervene or just close monitoring? What do you think?
Well, the first thing we have to do is come to a diagnosis. You can't treat without a diagnosis. And from what you're saying, the diagnosis from a pulpal point of view is a vascularized vital pulp that has no pathosis. The periapical diagnosis is you've got a radiolucency there, but the radiolucency is where the tooth was. It's not a lesion of endodontic origin. And the structural diagnosis is a traumatic resorption associated with the unerupted tooth. The biggest problem that will be from an orthodontic point of view is possibly there may have been some trauma to the pulp. So maybe if they move the tooth, there may be some stress on the pulp and the pulp may become necrotic in the future, but that's something you have to warn the patient. But the structural problem will be is if there's going to be any recession from the gingival margin into the periapical, close to the periapical tissue, you'll end up with a pocket. But my personal feeling is if there is going to be healing of the periapical tissue and we get some sort of if we get good resolution, then I think we'll just go ahead with the orthodontic treatment in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Professor Abu Tahun, please. Professor Abu Tahun, please unmute yourself. And then we have Dr. Noor and then Viresh. Professor Abu Tahun.
First of all, this is a typical case of external root end resorption due to pressure from impacted tooth. Usually these cases, if we remove the cause, the resorption will cease. This is well known. So in my own opinion, as for resorption, it will cease. And this is not a lesion, this is the site of extraction, the socket. So in my humble opinion, I I think, but because any tooth under active ortho movement is candidate for resorption, any tooth. In the literature, at least 5% of these patients, the body will eat the tooth, as they used to say, either by shortening or by resorption, okay? Severe resorption.
What about application of force? What about application of orthodontic force? Should we wait, as Professor Zimet said?
Yes. I first of all prefer to wait because the resorption will stop, healing will be evident. I don't know the age of this patient. I think in 6 months we will have already results. So I do believe that it's better to wait because also the active ortho movement will increase the risk of necrosis, as we read in the literature. So we have to be careful just to wait for 6 months. If everything is okay, we can proceed. In cases like these also, usually there is a constriction at the apex. Usually I have 2-3 cases like these where, but of course I had necrosis, so I had to proceed with root canal treatment. And usually the apex is constricted, so you can complete the conventional root canal treatment in these cases beautifully and to have at the end beautiful healing. So in my opinion, this is a typical case of external root resorption due to pressure. All what we have to do is just to remove the force, remove the pressure, and I think everything will be fine. But to go or not to go, I had a case also, but for anterior teeth, where teeth were totally avulsed due to bicycle accident. But after root canal treatment and, was sitting, very old case with non-sitting calcium hydroxide and treatment, we had all the typical signs, calcification, necrosis, lesion, but we had beautiful also result. After 6 months, patient was referred to her orthodontist who referred to me for active ortho movement. Everything was fine. So in this case, my own opinion, I agree with my previous colleagues. It's better to wait and see if everything is okay and the lesion is decreased in size.
Great.
We can.
Thank you very much. Dr. Noor, please go ahead. Make it very quick. Unmute yourself.
Thank you so much,
yes,
Dr.
we can hear you.
Thank you
go ahead.
for
Yes.
hosting me. Doctor, actually, I think as they said, we should wait and prevent the force. But my extra things, if you want to rapidly, quickly, the treatment, maybe we can do root canal treatment and do bone grafting. We can fill this place by bone grafting and waiting 2-3 months to regenerate the bone, and then we can do ortho. This is just idea. I don't know if it will be.
I know what you mean, but when we don't have any diagnosis, as Professor Zimet very clearly mentioned, what the diagnosis now is vascularized pulp tissue, which is a very, very good explanation of the situation. We need to be very careful because any intervention in this area, if it is not necessary and when there is no etiology, it's better not to do anything. So let's see what Professor Viresh is going to add. Professor Viresh, please. Thank you very much, Noor.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Probably this is a classic, I feel this is a classic example of an interdisciplinary approach of a case where the endo, perio, and ortho team has to come together. And I would, as a clinician, I always prefer not to be aggressive. And as Prof. Zimet very correctly said that this is a totally vascularized tooth. And as Prof. Abu Tahun said that we have already removed the stimulus, which is causing the resorption. So it is better to, I feel it is better to wait and watch, have a proper consultation with the orthodontist, that if we can wait for the time being, keep the tooth under observation and let the patient know that in case you are asymptomatic and we have to do orthodontic treatment, then probably I feel patient should know that after orthodontic treatment, there are chances of resorptive cells becoming active again. So patient should know that, and they should know that they should be given that support, psychological support, that in case it reactivates or it activates again, then probably proper treatment would be given, and this is the line of treatment we will be following at that point of time.
So, Viresh, you mean even if we have some sort of healing like that, which happens after 6 months, as our colleagues recommend, now, even if we want to apply the orthodontic force, we need to warn the patient. Is it what you mean? Because the tooth has a stressed pulp or something like that?
Yes, because it's a well-known fact that there has been cases of resorption even after orthodontic force has been applied on a properly vascularized pulp. There have been cases, right? Even if we see healing here and we see everything has gone fine, we can't guarantee the patient, we can't give him in writing that after the application of orthodontic forces nothing will happen to this tooth. Can we give it in writing? We cannot give it in writing. So it's always better, I feel from an ethical point of view also, it's always better to tell the patient that there are chances because this is already in that particular slot. So this is my take on this.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is very important because our next case is very similar to that. And the question is, now, is it possible to apply orthodontic force or not? Professor Abutown and Professor Zimet, I need actually your opinion about this question. Is it possible to apply force now or should be very cautious? Professor Abutown, please. Professor Abutown, we cannot hear you. Please come closer. Yes.
Yeah. I think we can proceed with orthodontic move because we have complete healing now, and because I was sure about that, because this external resorption is very well known. We teach it to our students. This is due to pressure. All what you have to do is just to remove the pressure, to remove the impacted tooth, and everything will be fine. As we can see here, Dr. Mohammed, healing. So why not to proceed? This is a normal tooth now. This is a normal
But
tooth.
Viresh believes that it's better to warn the patient about the possibility of some future problem.
I want just kindly to remind you with the discussion with Dr. Khaniotis, if you remember, a few months ago.
Exactly.
Yeah, and this was one of the conclusions, one of the remarks
exactly.
That
you're right.
We should have full consent.
What do you think?
I agree with Professor Chahun. I think now that the tooth is showing good signs of healing, we know there's a vascularized pulp, but we also know that the pulp has had some trauma. So we go ahead, but we need to maintain the tooth under appropriate monitoring. Unlikely that a molar is going to have apical orthodontic resorption, but the biggest problem will be whether the pulp does show signs of pulpal necrosis, and if it does, well, we've warned the patient. The root canal treatment in your hands will be a breeze, I'm sure. That's the least of our problems. It's patient management.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. And this is the result after another year after application of the orthodontic force. Unfortunately, 2 of the anterior teeth needs root canal treatment because they become necrotic. However, the first lower molar still is vital without any problem. Thank you very much. I hope this case helps for some. Oh, yes, please go ahead, Professor.
Why do you think those lower anteriors became necrotic? That's really weird.
Yeah, patients said there is no history of trauma even there, but she referred to me again during the orthodontic treatment, and there was actually very painful situation for all of them. I thought that can be because of the force. I checked the sensitivity test and I rechecked that again and again, and eventually these 2 became completely necrotic, unfortunately. I don't know, maybe because of the pressure of the orthodontic force. We can discuss that a lot because orthodontic force, unfortunately, sometimes may create some sort of apoptosis and initiate apoptosis inside the pulp cells that ends up with necrobiosis and then necrosis. But you're right, it was very weird for me as well. But as you can see in the pre-apical, when the patient referred to me, I asked actually again for reducing the force and it didn't work, unfortunately, as well. So ends up with this. However, still 6 is completely okay, and it wasn't necessary to do anything for that one. Do you have any comment or any idea about that? Yes, please.
Did you take a cone beam? The reason I ask is because I've seen a few of these, and the main reason that in my experience has been that the teeth, when they're moved, are moved outside of the cortical support, and the apices are outside of the cortical bone. And I've seen a few of these like that, and then that's when they seem to lose their vascularity.
So that means it's not related to the orthodontic movement. You mean it's an anatomic problem, maybe?
No, the orthodontics has pushed the teeth outside of the cortical plate, and now that we've got cone beam, I'm seeing patients are coming to me with pulpal necrosis, and you take a cone beam, and oh dear, you wouldn't have seen that before cone beam.
Okay, that's a very, very useful comment for all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the goal of this type of discussion, this CPC sessions, is that, and I hope it will be give us some good taste for the future to carry on some sort of discussion like that. That's great. Thank you very much. So let's say, as a conclusion for this case, first, when we have vital tooth or sensitive tooth, we shouldn't do anything. Close monitoring is recommended. Also, if we see some sort of necrosis, as Professor Zimet recommended, CBCT can be very useful to give us some idea about the apical vascularization, let's say. If they are outside the bone, if I get it right, Professor, if they are outside the bone, then we understand the reason is the movement of the tooth by orthodontic extra forces that did these problems. So the next case is a bit more difficult case for decision making. As you can see here, this is the result of the cone beam computed tomography. This patient referred from the orthodontic department, 13 years old female, asking by the orthodontist about the prognosis of lower right first molar, because they said that if the prognosis is acceptable, they are going to extract the lower right 8 and upright the lower right 7 by inserting the orthobone screw in the retromolar area. And if we say that no, the prognosis of lower 6 is not good, then they may do something else. So that if our result, our idea as endodontists is, yes, the prognosis of 6 is okay, they are going to surgically expose 7, surgically remove lower 8, insert an orthobone screw in the retromolar area, and upright the 7. But if we say 6 prognosis is not good, then they may do something else. Let me add something else. The tooth is vital. There is no probing defect, and there is no problem at all for that. So Farhan is going to talk. Farhan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nigofer. One of the alternate treatment options would be consider extracting 6 and uprighting 7 and using 8. So the 7 would come in the position of 6 and 8 to come in the position of 7. So that would have been an easier option compared to placing an implant in the molar zone.
Yeah, definitely they said that they are not going actually to keep the 6 if we say that the prognosis is not good. And the thing is that your suggestion is correct, but for some reason orthodontists in our orthodontic department, they said that it is very difficult to bodily move the 8 to this area, upright the 7, and then move both of them to the area of 6. So they prefer, actually, if possible, to keep the 6 and upright the 7. So the idea is that. So, and when we check everything about the 6, we decide actually also to take, so this is the idea, this is the treatment planning that they showed that to us to do that. And so this is the result of the CVCT. As you can see in this image, I show that to show the extension of the resorption as we explained in our previous case. Let's have a look again to that. Okay, Farhan, if you want to carry on while we are watching the CVCT, please. So Farhan's idea is to extract the 6, upright the 7, and bodily move the 8 and 7 to the place of 6. Am I right, Farhan?
Yes, but looking at this CBCT, I would think otherwise, because this section, the coronal section, is important because it shows that still the structural integrity of the distal aspect of 6 is not that damaged. So it means that 6 can be salvaged.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's have our input. Our colleagues, please add anything that you like to add by just unmute yourself and give us your input to this case. What is your idea and what is your suggestion? Pulp sensibility test for this case was okay. So for 6, I should say that the result was absolutely fine. So this tooth was vital. And no probing, we couldn't find any probing depth or any problem as well. Okay, so let's go back to the image and have the discussion. Okay, so Professor Jeong, do you want to add anything? Professor Al-Hawazi, please, any of you? Professor Zimet, what should we do?
Once you upright the 7, which I think will be really hard to do, my worry is you'll end up with a periodontal defect on between the 6 and the 7. And I've treated a few of these, and eventually even when I'm looking at the occlusal view, there's an exposure of the pulp chamber on the distal aspect of the 4-6. When you upright the 7, you'll expose the pulp will become necrotic. And to treat that, and to treat the apical extent of the distal root is not impossible. Nothing is impossible, but not predictable. So I'm worried that we're going to end up with a problem that's going to affect both the 6 and the 7, with a periodontal defect between the 6 and the 7, as well as an endodontic problem ultimately on the 6. So
okay, so you are worried about the perio problem as a result of the orthodontic movement, not just because of the resorption.
That's correct, because if you have a look between the 6 and the 7, there's no bone.
What about the formation of the bone similar to the previous case? Because in the previous case, we have seen the formation of the bone by just that. And if the movement of the 7 is very gradual, then we may have a position of the bone as well, I think. But let's see what others also think. Okay, yeah, please, you go ahead. You go ahead, please, Professor Zimet.
The problem is that on in the previous case, it was an enclosed four-wall defect. This is, I agree with you. If you elevate the 6, we know when you're doing extrusion, for example, the bone comes with it. But the problem is in this case, the distal of this, when you elevate the 7, the bone can come with it like an extrusion case. But the problem is on the distal of the 6, you've got a periodontal defect. And that periodontal defect is now in communication with the oral environment. And I would be very surprised if The 7 may have bone, but I don't think the 6 will end up with bone.
Okay. Professor Etienne, thank you very much for joining us from Belgium. That's great to see you again. Please, what do you think? What is your idea? We cannot hear you. I don't know why. You unmute yourself, but we cannot hear you. Please again, unmute yourself. No, unfortunately, no. My suggestion, if you go out, if you just go out and come back again and join by the audio, then you can talk and we can hear you. That is the reason that sometimes we cannot hear you. So if you just go out and come back again. During this time, I am going to ask Professor Al-Hawaizi to give us his idea. Professor Al-Hawaizi, please.
Well, by looking at this case, I'm rather conservative. Maybe I would go for uprighting the 7 and see what the body can do in relation to the defects between the 6 and 7. So after uprighting the 7, what's the worst scenario is a necrotic 6. At that time, I would see what I can do about the 6, maybe an extraction and bone grafting the area. But I would go for.
But the patient is just 13 years old, Professor. Listen, yeah, so the surgery is not very easy for this case.
That's why I don't like to do surgery now. I would like to upright the 7 and keep it under follow-up.
Okay. And you are not worried about what Professor Zimet said about the periodontal problem?
Well, it is possible, but at the same time, you know, at the age of 13, the osteogenic effect power of the body is very good. It is really remarkable what you might see in bone formation, especially at such an age. Possible.
Okay, great. Dr. Jeong, what do you think?
In this case, no, I'm not really aware of the orthodontic, the treatment and the sequence, and then but the very limited my knowledge because this is the young patient, right? So I think that the development, the child still could develop. Also, don't know the final picture of this the patient's skull, especially the mandible. So yeah, I would rather just the go for the conservative way, try to keep it and then just monitor.
Okay, so and what about the perio problem?
One more comment.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I want to be very careful to see if any external cervical resorption in the future.
Apical.
External cervical resorption,
cervical. Okay, I understand. Okay, Viresh, what is your input? No, not yet, not yet. You cannot unmute yourself? Okay.
Sir, a lot of voices are there. I'll not be able to speak.
Okay, but we can hear you very well. We can hear you very well. Don't worry.
I am not able to hear clearly. That's why I'm just listening to all the experts.
All right,
Sorry
all right,
for that.
Okay, so is there anybody else that they want to add anything? Dr. Iqbal, Dr. Kiamars, any others? Any other input? Dr. Zagar, Karina, anybody else? Dr. Iqbal, Jafar, do you want to add anything? Okay. And unfortunately, I think Professor Etienne couldn't turn on his microphone. But what we decide actually, after a very long discussion about this case, we decide actually to do the extraction of the 8 and try to upright 7. And this is now the result after a year. So now the question is about what should we do now? Should we intervene? Should we do anything for this distal root canal or not? Which is a question that we don't have the answer, because this pre-apical image just taken around 3 weeks ago. So now this is a discussion for the future that we need your comments now. Professor Zimmer, there is no pocket at the moment. There is no problem in terms of the vitality. Should we carry on uprighting the 7 and just monitor the case? Or should we intervene surgically or do something with that? Please help me for that.
I assume I assume tooth 4-6 is responsive to pulp sensibility testing?
Yes.
You work magic. I'm going to come to you when I need something done. This is what you've done. You've done great result. Amazing. I wouldn't have. It's not something.
Are you worried about this replacement resorption? Can we call it replacement resorption, or should we wait again?
No, it's trauma-induced resorption related to the pressure of the 7, and once you remove the pressure of the 7, that resorption is going to stop. But what I'm totally surprised about was that the periodontal status just healed. I think you should take up perio. This is great.
Okay, thank you. Farhan, what do you think?
Yeah, it's great, but still I'm worried about the marginal ridges. The 2 marginal ridges are not aligned at this point in time, and we know that. The marginal ridges are important in operative dentistry. If marginal ridges are not in line, then the chances of caries taking place is high. So the orthodontic treatment is not yet completed. The objectives are not.
Of course.
Yeah. So they need to make sure.
It is an ongoing case in orthodontic department. We just recall the patient to evaluate the patient, and then we keep an eye on the patient, obviously.
Yes. So we need to perfectly align the 2 both by root uprighting and bodily movement, so that we got the teeth aligned properly. And then we need to keep an eye on the distal aspect of the radicular part of 6. If it continues to heal up, that's great. But if it's not, then certainly it will cause a dilemma. And dilemma in a sense, because we once had an option of removing 6, but we opted to save it. But now 8 is gone. And if something happens to 6 with a poor endodontic outcome, then we would have no answer to the patient's family, who would say that, doctor, we trusted in you, and you had the choice of extracting the tooth out, and you removed the tooth that could have been salvaged and sacrificed this one. So it's an ethical dilemma on the clinician. So let's keep our finger crossed. Yeah. So
I appreciate that. I understand what you mean. And to be honest, we arranged a consultation session for that with all of our colleagues. Now I want to ask Professor Al-Hawaizi and Professor Kiamars also to add their input. Professor Al-Hawaizi.
Well, I'm very happy to see this picture, because I've got a couple of cases whereby bone healed around teeth that in an unusual way. Even periodontists looked at the cases and they said, how did it happen? That's why I'm a conservative believer in bone healing. I don't know how it's happened, but I think we have to keep or give the body a chance to heal. It's remarkable. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Kiamars, please, what do you think about it? It's great to have you with us today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, if with this situation, if you didn't want to do nothing with the orthodontics movement, I give the chance to number 7 stay in the same area, and as the 6 can be repaired, as the professor said, is that we can give the chance because it's like is that good healing and good repair in the bone. And if the patient didn't have any complaint or any problem, I just follow and follow the teeth and make a radiograph is enough. I think so.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. So I think there are some actually 2 more cases, but in terms of the time, I think we just around 2 hours that we are with each other. I can actually move quickly to the next case and ask a big question about the next case. But just to introduce, let's introduce the next case and talk about it. This is a case of after orthodontic treatment, unfortunately happened. This resorption, external root resorption here happened after orthodontic movement. And I want actually to show you the result of the probing here. Please have a look. This is the result of the probing, which seems we have a narrow isolated probing defect here, unfortunately. And this is the result of the electric pulse test comparing to the control one. Unfortunately, the tooth is necrotic. So as you can see on the upper image, the results comparing to the right canine, which was 17, this one goes higher and higher, and patient didn't answer. And the answer to the cold test and other tests also was negative. So that means we have a necrotic or at least a non-responsive canine here, and also an external root resorption. And the orthodontist referred this case to me asking for the treatment option. The plan was actually to move this canine and also the central, because there was a missing of the lateral tooth, and they wanted actually to create a space here for insertion and implant, which wasn't unfortunately successful as well, and end up with this problem. As Farhan also mentioned, some ethical issue is involved. The patient is the sister of a dentist, and also she is 21 years old. So she is very, very sensitive to the aesthetic situation. And now I need your help. So what to do with this case? Obviously, we need actually a consultation with the periodontist, as well as orthodontist, endodontist, and all the TUMS. Okay, let us start by Professor Zimmer.
Was the tooth in the palate, or did it ever have to be exposed and repositioned?
No. They just moved the tooth. No. The tooth was actually just attached to the central, and the orthodontist decided to move it and expand the plateau to create a space in the lateral side to insert an implant for the aesthetic issue. So the canine, and there was a crowding, as far as I understand, because they didn't consult with us prior to initiation of the treatment. And after this complication, they referred that to us. No, the tooth was there. It wasn't impacted canine. It was actually an erupted one.
And I assume there was no periapical taken beforehand to sort of get an idea and make sure there was no.
I couldn't get that. They said that they have a panoramic view, not the preapical, but even I couldn't get that one. And this is the only image that I have from this patient.
Yeah.
This is a new patient. This is a new patient. And I don't have any more slide to show you out of this case. And I really need your help. All of you. Jeong, what do you think? What is your input? Others, please. Dr. Jeong, what do you think?
This case, I wanna initiate root canal treatment, and then the maybe I can use either the calcium hydroxide or calcium silicate cellular obturation, and then see you said that narrow proving depth. So probably the perio could be involved, but also it's a chance to see the improvement of deep proving depth by the endodontic treatment. Because I'm not sure we'll have the bone regeneration on the side, but maybe long junction epithelium in the healing, it's possible. So I think that I want to initiate root canal treatment in this case.
Okay, so you suggest actually the insertion of calcium, long-term calcium hydroxide. Actually, I had a discussion about this case with Professor Abbott from Australia, and Professor Abbott suggests the use of corticosteroid leather mix inside the canal for long-term. Please, others, tell me, what do you think about it? Farhan, please go ahead. Your input always is very, very nice. Please.
Yeah. So on a lighter note, you need to change the orthodontist first, because the people.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, yes, endodontics should be done, and then a close monitoring to see whether the endodontic treatment yields better outcome and the perio resolves. But if not, then obviously you need to keep an eye on it and resort to the interventions. Now, regarding the question whether a long-term calcium hydroxide...
Can I stop you, Farhan, about the perio problem? What do you think about the etiology of the perio? Because the etiology of the perio looks like it's related to this resorption as well. If it is related, is it just a root canal treatment alone? Is it enough, do you think, or we need periodontic intervention?
So in any case, first need to carry out endodontics, wait, see the outcome, whether the perio improves. If perio improves, then nothing is like that. So you may not need to resort to periodontal treatment if the endodontic treatment gives you the favorable outcome. So the first endo observation, if the probing depth improves, then there is no point resorting to perio at all. And if it's not, then obviously you have to, go for a flap procedure, grafting, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so when you're talking about root canal treatment, you're talking about use of long-term calcium hydroxide, as Professor Jeong mentioned, or leather mix, as Professor Abbott mentioned.
Yeah, so if you ask my opinion, which is not evidence-based, it's not scientific, but in my opinion, I am not a big fan of intracanal medicaments, because we know that what you remove out of the canal is far, far more important than what you place inside the canal. So what you place inside the canal is actually a confounder of your debridement. So if your debridement is thorough, is disinfected, then whatever you place inside the canal would do the wonders. And you would attribute the success to your intracanal medicament, which actually has been your filing and nothing else. So I would go, 1 or 2 visits, simple, straightforward orthograde on endodontics, and wait and follow up. However, if you resort to...
I really like your idea. Please, let's stop on this one. The one that you said, irrigation and removal of the source from the intracanal may have some more effect comparing to intracanal medication. Let's discuss this by others and then move on and we come back to you. So Professor Al-Hawaizi, I want your idea about the use of intracanal medicament comparing to removal of the source from the root canal system in this case. What do you think? Do you recommend long-term calcium hydroxide or leather mix, or just one visit root canal treatment?
Well, really, the way I see it, I don't see any communication between the root canal and the external perio, other than possibly a lateral canal or the internal tubules. In such cases, I would go for endo treatment, and I start the perio treatment. By the looks of the perio lesion, maybe it's a 3-year-old defect. So I think a perio surgery would end this problem once and for all. Endo and then and perio.
So because Professor Jeong suggests the use of long-term calcium hydroxide, I want to actually ask him again why you suggest the use of calcium hydroxide rather than just doing a single root canal treatment, one visit root canal treatment?
I wanna say that I don't really wanna do the the long term the use of calcium hydroxide. The reason I wanna have the calcium hydroxide because I need to refresh it the periodically, but wanna see the improvement of the root canal the treatment. Because if I see the the normal proving depth, and then that really convinced me that oh, I can complete the root canal treatment. Because if I just complete a root canal treatment, it turns out failed, and then that the financially the patient may not be happy. So that's the kind of, I would say there is no optional, but also if patients the happy to just let me finish the root canal treatment, and then I really want to finish the root canal treatment instead of keep using calcium hydroxide, but I want to use a calcium silicate based sealer rather than the traditional sealer.
Okay, I understand. Dr. Zimmet, may I ask you to put together all of this and conclude on this case for us, please?
I think we start off with the diagnosis. The diagnosis that everyone says is it's pulpal necrosis with some sort of with some sort of apical periodontitis. It looks like there may be some sort of lesion visible at the apex, and then we've got resorption. The question is what the resorption is. Sounds like it's inflammatory resorption, which is related to the pulpal necrosis. And so then if we perform root canal treatment to remove the pulpal necrosis, then in theory, the resorption should resolve. But the question will be whether the periodontal defect will resolve, possibly not. And then you've got the issue from an ethical point of view, whether you want to complete the root canal treatment, as Dr. Jeong says, or you put calcium hydroxide in there, and that's a discussion you have with the patient. So I think everyone's comfortable that calcium hydroxide in of itself is not the cause, it's the removal of the microorganisms and treating the intracanal infection. And make sure you've got a good periodontist on board.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I want to start from you again, Professor Zimmet. First of all, again, thank you very much for being with us, supporting us. Your presence is very precious for us. Thanks a lot. And I want to have some idea about the second session, this CPC event. What do you think about it? Obviously, we are going to carry on our journal club discussion with amazing authors like Professor Jeong that humbly accept to be with us today. But I want to have your feedback about these sessions, that it was just a kickoff and a taste of that. What do you think? And what is your suggestion?
Professor Nekufar, do you want to have it as a separate entity or together?
I'm going actually to collect the feedback and decide what to do. So maybe we can have two separate sessions, 1 month journal club, 1 month CPC. So every 2 months we have journal club, and every 2 months we have this type of discussion. Or if the feedback said that CPC is more important than journal club, we stick with that. It depends on the feedback that we receive from participants.
And are you prepared to put the cases together?
I'm going actually to ask all of our colleagues from around the world to do that for us. Obviously, my resident, I'm going to oblige them to do that. I can see now the face of my professor, Professor Qazi Nouri, who is with us now. And when I was very young, I was his student, and he had a saying. He said that even we are able to, oops, where am I? Sorry. I remember that when I was in the clinic as the postgraduate resident, he said that residents should do whatever the professor asked him to do. Even we can kill the resident if necessary. So I can do that now as a professor of our department and ask our resident to prepare the case for us. But this is a joke. Obviously, I'm happy to do that. And I'm sure my colleagues from other countries also are going to join us to do that. But what do you think? Do you think journal club, we keep going about journal club, also same for CPC, or what is your idea about it? Because I personally learned a lot from you and others. Okay, so while we are waiting for Professor Zimed, let's see what others think. Professor Al-Hawaizi, what is your suggestion?
Well, I think if you divide them, it would be much better. It gives you a better concentration about in every discussion. Joining them wouldn't be much of a help.
Yeah, this is not the plan. Obviously, joining them in one session is not going to work. I do agree with you because of the time, but every month, can we switch between them? Do you think is better? Or, yep, something like that.
Good idea.
Why not? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other inputs? Dr. Jeong, thank you very much, Dr. Jeong. Today, we put you in a very difficult situation, asking you a lot of questions. And you did very well. Thank you very much. Just to say thanks to you, also, there is a certificate that we will send it to you by being with us today. So I'm going to ask my colleague Zohre, who is the one behind the scene always and help us to share that certificate with us. Zohre, please go ahead and share that. And meanwhile, we put together our hand just to say thanks to Dr. Jeong for accepting our invitation. Thank you very much, Dr. Jeong. And this is the certificate from Tehran University of Medical Sciences and Asian Pacific Endodontic Confederation that because of your contribution to this program. Thank you very much indeed. So if you want to add something and say something, please go ahead.
Wow. I really appreciate. It's a really honor to be, the invited here and then have great, the discussion, and then, yeah, I really appreciate. And then this is a really, the fantastic experience in, the early this year, 2023. I really have good start this year. I really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm sure now you can find a lot of research partner in this group, so you can communicate with them, and they are happy to communicate with you as well to work together for the future research. Thank you very much. And we have also same certification for Dr. Fatema Betul Bashturk. I think Fatema is back and she is with us. Fatema, are you here? Okay, it seems Fatema is not with us, but she did very well. We can imagine that she's in a very difficult situation because of the earthquake in Turkey, and we put our hand together for Fatema as well. Thank you very much, Fatema, and hope, oh yes, she cannot unmute herself, she said, but that's fine, Fatema. Thank you very much for that, and we will email you this certificate, and if necessary, the hard copy can be sent to both of you as well. So, before we say goodbye, so the plan is going to be to have one CPC every month, every 2 months, and one journal club every 2 months. But because we are going to finish the APEC journal club in the next session is going to be purely a journal club. And then after that, we carry on by CPC. I will send all the information to all of you as a year program so you can arrange your schedule to be with us. Professor Zimet, do you want to add anything as the conclusion? Please go ahead. And also, I think Professor Etienne managed to come back and give us some talk. Professor Etienne, can you talk first?
I don't know if it works now.
Oh, Professor Etienne from Belgium, thank you very much for being with us today.
It's the first time that I'm with you.
Oh.
So I've seen the presentations and they were very interesting. But what I missed went with the resorption of the distal root of the first molar in the right side lower jaw. there was also the problem at the left side. There was also a retention of the molar, the 7.
So then let's go back. Not short. It's what?
Not this one. There
No,
was.
I know. I'm trying actually to go back to that one.
Yeah, it was a
So-
problem with the 8 and the 7, and what upright or extraction of the 6. It was before this one.
Yes, I'm going back to that.
Yeah.
So are you talking about the first case or this case?
No, go further. The panoramic view. We've
Okay.
seen. Yeah, there you see you have the same problem at the left side as you had, but no resorption yet. And what happened with the left side was the same upright up. They brought the 7 in place and took out wisdom tooth, or what did they do?
I will find it out. So to be honest with you, I wasn't very curious about that one, which is amazing that these sessions give us a lot of information like that. So this patient is going to be very lucky, because I'm going back on Monday to the clinic to find it out what's happening for that one as well. Thank you very much.
And what
very nice notice.
What is very important when you see these cases in an earlier stadium, then it's better already to take out the 6. Then the 7 will come in place of the 6, and the wisdom tooth has all the place. So you prevent, and now you have to look what we can do. And that is always a problem. I've seen also, I heard with the other case of the canine in the upper jaw with the orthodontic problem, the resorption of the root, the external resorption, you cannot solve it with root canal treatment. So the problem will stay. And I think in a lot of cases, it's better to do nothing and to wait and see how is the development. Because when you treat too easily and you want to prevent more damage, sometimes the damage comes because of the therapy you want to do. And I see often the more cases are seen by a lot of different specialization. Every specialist want to treat with his idea what's the best. So sometimes wait and see, and if it's too late, it's too late. And an extraction, missing one tooth, is not a problem for a lot of people, because when you become older, if you still can eat, if you still are without pain, but why is really necessary? You can follow the patient, and if he miss that tooth really, then you could do another treatment. But sometimes without the 7 or without the 6, people can still be alive and kicking, I will say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Etienne. And I hope we are going to have you for
I'm retired now, but in private practice, I continue. Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. Fantastic. That's great to see you after a long time. Professor Zimet, the stage is yours for the conclusion and ending the session.
As always, this has been a remarkable achievement. We've had the opportunity to hear and get an in-depth understanding of something that I've always been very scared of, which is the use of calcium silicate cements and hydraulic calcium silicate cements. I must admit, I've not used them because I'm worried about retreatment. And I'm also worried about root fracture, which is another thing I'd be interested to someone to talk about, because there was a paper that came out 2 or 3 years ago that said 5% of the BC cements ended up with root fracture after 5 years. So that's a bit of a worry. So I must admit, I haven't looked at, but Professor Nekufar and Professor John and Fatima, thank you very much for the efforts that you guys have put in, because it really It's 2 o'clock in the morning here and I'm still here. So
wow. Thank you.
no, I think this is what APEC is all about, and I think we should all put our hands together and thank our 3 people that have been very instrumental in today's presentation. So thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you in a month's time.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. I cannot say anything. I'm surprised that it said 2 a.m. and you are still with us. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. So let's say see you soon in a month. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.